All right. I'm Tyson with Portfolio Planning. Thanks for joining us today. I'm here with my co-host, Mike Lloyd of the HomeHappy team. Today, we're going to talk about 5 reasons why you should not think of your home as an investment. Mike, thanks for joining me, man.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, no worries. So you were saying before we hit record, you are at the point now where it's actually becoming nice in Kelowna, and it's going to be warmer in Kelowna than it is in Vancouver. So I'm sort of jealous.
Yeah, it should be 22 today, so it'll be funny because in a month that'll seem cold, but yeah, now it seems nice.
Exactly. It's about time to switch over to shorts. We
That's
had
right.
a couple of weeks ago, we had like the urge to pack up all of our winter jackets and stuff, and I'm glad I didn't. I had to wear one this week.
Cool.
So we wanted to talk today about like 5 reasons why clients should not view their home as an investment. And so you're you're very, very tied to what people think and how they feel about their homes. So before I jump into like my thoughts and my list, do you have any general thoughts on like what you see and how people view this?
Yeah, I mean, in general, obviously people see their home as one of their biggest investments in their lives. Um, the the older generations tend to think of it as something you've got to pay off your mortgage as fast as possible, no matter what. And that's great in a perfect world. But everybody's different, and everybody has different situations, and investing in certain other things might make a lot more sense at different times. So, I mean, it always comes down to your personal plan and where you want to be, and what you do and how your income comes in, and all your planning. So, it's I don't think it should be just like your home shouldn't be set aside from all your other planning. It should be a big part of your planning, and that's kind of in a nutshell what I would think.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And we try to have those conversations and steer people away from that. And so on my little list of items here, like number one, when we're looking at this from, I'm an investment guy. When I'm looking at your home as part of your total portfolio and you viewing it as an investment, you have lack of diversification. So you think if this person's going to make $1 million or $2 million over their working lifetime, and your home is worth $1.5 million, and you have to pour into the mortgage, there's not a lot left over for lifestyle, taxes, travel, kids' school, sports, savings and investments, all the other things. So in your life, you're not very diversified.
Yeah. And you're at the mercy of the market as well. I mean, if you needed to sell at a certain time because of an emergency or a job change or something, if that market's slow, you're stuck. Like, you can't necessarily sell when you want to sell. Whereas most other investments have a lot more liquidity tied to them. So for emergencies, they're a better choice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Which brings me to point number two, or liquidity. And definitely, like what we have when we have certain types of investments, most clients want to know the more specialized the investment, like how fast can I get access to my money?
Hmm.
On the investment side, it's like a couple of days, right? Like you submit your instructions, it's in your bank account in a couple of days.
Yeah.
If you wanted to get out of your house, and the more niche and the more customized your house, the slower the trading time on the market.
Yeah.
And man, I see some absolutely beautiful homes, especially like in the South Langley area where you're kind of out in the farms and you get acreage and beautiful. Some of them are on sale for years at a time before they sell. And to your point, man, what if you had an opportunity to move to, Toronto or Nova Scotia or somewhere, and it's a big deal for you, but you can't get out of your house? Then what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you still have an asset, you still could rent it out or do other things, but yeah, you're a bit at the mercy of what's happening at that moment in the market. And something some people don't think about too is, what if you're in a really nice condo or you're in a tower, um, but there's 10 other people trying to sell at the same time, or the developer's trying to dump the last few that they're trying to sell and they drop the price. So you're at the mercy of what's going on around you, and you can't control that. And that's the risk of real estate, but it's also the benefit. So, it's you can't, like, it's all about diversification, like you were saying. And if your biggest asset and your only asset is your house, that's a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned the condo like can't sell and the what's going on in the marketplace. There's a few other realtors and mortgage brokers that are big on YouTube that right now they're talking about what's happening in Central Surrey because there's projects that are completing, there's projects that are they're done and people are trying to get out of them, trying to flip their pre-sales, and the market is flooded with potentially 2,000 units in one little area, one little neighborhood, and nothing's selling right now.
Yeah,
Um,
scary. I mean, 5, 7 years ago when they started pre-selling them, everybody said, "Oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm never going to live in it. I'm just going to flip it because it's going to go up so much because the market's hot, hot." And yeah, that's a dangerous way to look at real estate. If you buy real estate, you got to think about it. I think from a longer lens, a bigger picture. Buy a pre-sale, but know that you shouldn't plan on just flipping it in a year. Like the odds of that working out are slim. And these days, even the developers have it written in their contracts that they have control over whether you can flip it, and you have to pay them a flipping fee. So
yeah,
the there's a lot to that, and I think it's like everything we always talk about. When you dumb it down to 10 seconds, if you're taking advice from somebody over 10 seconds of information, it's not a smart way to do your long-term planning.
yeah, very true. The people who give you that advice, they're usually gone, right? Like
Yeah,
by the time you're completing on this condo, by the time you're doing the project, they're not even around anymore. And
exactly.
they were the catalyst of your decision making. Uh, Point number three, why you shouldn't think of your house as an investment. No passive income.
Mm,
And right, I mean, like the age old term for a house is the money pit. As soon as you own it, is uh, the roof needs to be replaced, light bulbs and maintenance, electrical bills, the toilet breaks, like things happen in the house, and so you're constantly involved in upkeep. And that's not a passive income piece, that's an expense. And it's
yeah,
usually a large expense.
yeah, absolutely. And it's not, there's some houses you could add a suite or maybe a mini home in the backyard or something, who knows? But not many properties give you that kind of an option. So yeah, you're in it for the long haul with a ever increasing expenses package. So it's something you got to think about. And yes, you got to live somewhere, and those costs are going to be, you're going to have costs regardless of what you end up doing. But it is something you got to think about from the, like, again, long term thinking. And you're going to have to be able to cover those costs with whatever income you have, whether you have income or not.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. That's kind of a scary thing, but um, we've had it so good for so long in BC that I think people don't look at. There's no pros and cons. There's only pros in a lot
Yeah.
of their minds, and really skews the decision making process.
Another
Um,
little quick note on that one. In BC, if you're a senior, you can delay paying your property taxes. They just add it onto your bill and they let you accumulate it, which sounds cool, except that it's collecting interest, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger debt bomb that you're going to have to deal with either when you die or when you sell. So that's not exactly a great solution either. Like these, some of these houses are 5, 10, $20,000 a year in property taxes that the mom or the dad is now deferring. You can see how fast that can add up to a pretty significant amount of money.
yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense. Now, have you ever seen where a municipality will reverse their decisions? So every year, like you're going to defer, they approve you to do that, right? And can they reverse their decision and say, we're no longer approving this?
I'm sure in somewhere in the technicalities they could, but I think they'd be terrified to do that because it would upset everybody, and they would be, look politically, it would be a killer. So
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Uh, Point number four, which is what we just talked about. Emotional attachment can skew your decisions when it comes to your home because people say and do irrational things because it's their home. They want more housing affordability, but you don't want your property value to go down, and you want it at both ends. And so you probably see this and deal with this a lot. Do you get people that come back to you after you do like an appraisal and they say, "Are you out of your mind? My
oh
house is
yeah,
worth more than that."
yeah. I mean, it's funny how, when if you ask somebody, what's your house worth? Well, my neighbor has their house on for this much, so therefore mine's worth more. They may never have even been in the neighbor's house, and the neighbor hasn't sold his house. He only has it on the market. It doesn't mean they're going to get that amount. So, yeah, there's a lot of like quick bet calculations on their math, and uh, everybody thinks their house is better than everybody else's. And at some point, somebody's got to have the house that's not worth as much. So, yeah, appraisers love when they go into houses and the guy tells them how much their house is worth without them even asking. But yeah, it's an ongoing thing, and you have to try and remove the emotion from it and say to yourself, okay, well, if I was walking into this house, would I pay that much? Well, hell no. But so let's get back to some reality of what's on the market. And part of that is also when you've been in your house for 5 or 10 years, you haven't been out looking, so you're not as aware of what the market's doing as much. You might know a few properties, but you're not going to know what the whole area has done and historically and currently. So yeah, it's a tricky thing. I mean, we ask clients what they think their house is worth, but we take it with a grain of salt.
Gotcha. Okay. What about, this isn't on our list here, but just a point of curiosity. When people want to do like upgrades and stuff to their house, some people go overkill and it would be like over renovating, thinking that
Yeah.
I'm putting in this $500,000 kitchen, therefore my house is worth $500,000 more. Do you ever have to talk people like off the ledge or?
Oh yeah, lots of times. I mean, people get obsessed about something they want to add that actually could hurt their price. Like adding a pool doesn't necessarily add value to your house.
Yep.
It might be something that you guys really value, but the next person may not value them that much. And I'm not on hacking on pools. I just mean you have to be really careful with what you do. And even like bathrooms and kitchens are the number one thing to renovate and upgrade. But your choices there can actually create problems too. And yeah, I've seen people that just spent way too much on things that end up hurting your house, not helping. And so I don't think it's something you should go into. I don't mean you have to hire necessarily an interior designer every time, but you should try and get a few opinions and see what other people think and be open to what they're thinking, not just, oh, that's stupid, I'm going to do what I want. So it's yeah, I mean, you really want to think about what the marketability is down the road. Like, what is it going to do in terms of other people looking at it? Is it going to help or whatever?
Yeah. So what are you seeing in terms of people that are going to do a bathroom? Let's say it's just like a regular house. We're not even like a upper middle classes, but like a regular house where it's like a sink, a toilet, and like a bathtub shower. What are you seeing in terms of cost of renovating something like that now to like bring it into the 2000s?
Ugh, it really depends, because if it's just strictly just sort of stripping those out and replacing them, you can get away with it pretty cheaply. Probably, I don't know, 15,000. I would guess
Yep.
10,000 maybe. Depends how cheap you want to go. But usually, when you pull those things out, then there's usually other issues that you have to deal with, and that's the problem. Especially the older the house, the more likely there's plastic piping and things that you have to get replaced.
Yeah.
And so usually the problem is you pull out one wall and now you're looking at other things you have to deal with, and it's not just what you started with. So you can see why like these companies that come in and just replace the bathtub with a slip in. You can see why people do those things. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's um,
They don't want
it's
to
not
see the problem.
ideal. It's not, yeah, it's hiding the problem and it's not ideal, but it means that if you were planning to sell fairly soon, it looks good to the next person, and you didn't spend a fortune to get it there.
Yeah. That part makes sense. Last point in our list, 5 reasons why think about your house as a investment uh, is not a good idea. Last one is regulatory and market risks. And you kind of touched on that a little bit, but have you seen, maybe you can give an example of like a regulation that's changed, that's hurt people's either ability to get out of their house or hurt their long-term plan?
Absolutely. I mean, literally, the BC government just brought in a flipping tax, and if you bought a house, you're going to pay a tax to get out of it if you sell within 2 years. In the first year, there's a big uh, tax, fine, whatever you want to call it. After that, it starts to go down, but you have to wait 24 months, which is supposed to stop people from flipping. Which I don't believe there was very many flippers in BC, anyways, because you had to pay property purchase tax to get in. So I don't know how you're going to try and cover that and this new tax, which definitely is not going to work. But anyway, I think what's scary about that is somebody who bought a house and maybe they get divorced or something happens in their life and now they've got to get out of that house. Are you going to have to wait until you don't pay the tax? Like that just seems really unfair. There's the secondary home thing came in and now they're picking different areas. They're adding more and more areas in BC that used to be tax exempt. I mean, and it, everybody thinks, oh, if you've got a second home, that's no big deal. But literally it's like little cabins and it'll affect all sorts
Yeah.
of different people. And yeah, it's just, there's more and more of that kind of scary where the government makes a change and all of a sudden it's affecting you. I mean, zoning can change. An example locally here, they used to have these lots that were allowable to put on like duplexes or more. And if you found one of those, you'd pay more for it because it was rare. And then lo and behold, the city of Kelowna changed their rule and everybody can do it. And so you just paid a premium for a lot that now is the same as everybody else's. So
Yeah.
like literally in one day, you just lost a bunch of money through no fault
That
of your own. It's
sucks.
just, yeah,
That's right. Holy crap.
yeah,
Um, that's wild. We caution people against this. Obviously, we're not telling people not to buy houses, but
nope,
it's about approaching it with a level-headed thought process and looking at, reasons why you might not want to have this. You battle this all the time. I battle this all the time, where people get very emotional and wrapped up in their home because of their home.
their place.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
absolutely.
it's so hard, but it's so important to try and remove yourself from it. Try and picture yourself looking down on yourself. Would this be something you would agree with, or would you say I'm being an idiot? And it's hard. Like nobody wants to admit that to themselves, but it's something you've really got to do because it's such a big asset and such a big investment. That yeah, you really have to think about it from like, is this a place that I would want to buy in 10 years if I do these changes, or is it a place that I'm going to want to live in for 10 years? Like, don't buy it because it's the cheapest place or the only thing you can afford, and vice versa. It goes on and on. But I mean, there's lots of reasoning, but try to keep your reasoning as unemotional as possible and strictly business. The rest of it will fall in. I mean, if you like it enough that you're thinking about it, you probably like it. Uh, but try to think about it from that business case point of view. An example is when we get an appraisal done, we get an independent appraisal company. They come in, they do an appraisal of the property. Lenders require that for many mortgages when we do them. The reason the bank is doing it is the same reason you should think about it. They look at it like, okay, if we had to foreclose on this property and sell it in 90 days, what would be the price we would get? And that's what that appraiser is looking for. He's not looking for what, you could get the highest amount for. It's how could you fire sale this house? And in a lot of ways, that's a very good way to look at it yourself. Is this a house that if I had to sell it in 90 days, we could? If I add on all these things, is that going to make it more sellable or actually less saleable? And so it sounds weird, but it's trying to remove the emotion and make it just a business decision.
Yep. That's interesting. That's interesting. And not that it's part of this list or part of this conversation, but I have had talks with some of my partners, and they were saying that there's more and more wealthy individuals that rent. They don't even own houses anymore. They own investment properties, warehouses, whatever, but they don't
Yeah.
even own a principal residence anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, particularly the Lower Mainland is just so expensive that the amount of cash you have to, spend on it can sometimes not make sense. I mean, if you buy in, you're going to be part of that market and maybe it's going to keep going up, but maybe it isn't. Maybe we've seen a great 20 years and now it's going to be flat for a long time and renting could make more sense. I mean, I'm never a fan of renting in terms of you lose control because somebody owns that and they can do what they want with their properties up to some degree. But yeah, I mean, it is in terms of investments, places in Edmonton are going to return your money like cash flow wise way better. And it's
Yeah.
less investment to get in. You can buy 3 properties for the price of a place in the Lower Mainland.
Yep.
So we used to talk about renting here and buying there, and sort of looking at it from a different point of view that maybe it's a better investment to buy real estate elsewhere so that you get investment in your portfolio or real estate in your portfolio, but it's not tied to the Lower Mainland, which is such a tough nut to get into.
Yep. Very true. Very true. Awesome. Do you have any
Okay.
closing thoughts? Anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think overall, it's just once again comes back to having some good strategic planning to think about it as unemotionally as you can. And it's a huge decision, and it will be a great part of your life probably. And if you think about it the right way, then it will turn into that. But it's not the only thing. You should have sort of a diversification in your whole life is smart, and trying to do it is hard, but it's worth doing.
Yeah, I hear you. That makes a ton of sense. That's all I got for today. I'm Tyson with Portfolio Planning. This is Mike from the HomeHappy team in sunny
Thanks so much.
Kelowna. And we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks.